Thank
All
you,
right.
Lee, for being here, Mr. Lee Odess of Inside Access Control and Inside Visitor Management. Just to start off, maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Lee Odess, I live just outside the Washington, D.C. area. As you said, I'm with Inside Access Control and Inside Visitor Management, which are a website, newsletter, blog, really like an analyst of those two industries that right now overlap. I do believe long term they will be one and the same. But I've been in the business for about 15 years now. I've worked in every part of it, really, from the manufacturing, integration, startup, big public company, and have built relationships all over and really take a look at the industry. What I believe is in a view of where it can be versus where it's been, and spend a lot of my time on the, like I said, on the analyst side, looking at those trends and really just trying to paint a picture and create a place where people have a conversation about the industry, about where it can be versus, this is the four players that have been around the longest and that's how it's going to be. And I just think that we're, especially now, have a great opportunity with these phase changes that are going through that have been accelerated, and very excited about the time and period of which we're in currently right now.
Okay, well, that's interesting what you say about access control and visitor management kind of becoming one. So if let's say you've seen any big pivots in response to COVID-19, would you say that these pivots are pretty much the same in each industry, or how have they played together? What's your take on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So overall, on a macro side, I would say we already were seeing convergence, if you would, of the two industries, if you would, on that end. Now, typically, visitor management was seen as I would say, an add-on feature a lot of times to an access control system. That's historically done where someone took a clipboard, if you would, made it digital. They wanted to cover NDAs. Well, there was already a movement that was happening by a handful of companies to where there was more about workflows and adding a lot more value to the actual. I think they're digital interfaces. It's a great example of the digital transformation that's happening in the access control side, where historically it's been about black readers and cards.
Mm-hmm.
The visitor management side has been really around rich interfaces, the data that comes off of it, response to situations that were there. So that was already happening, and now with COVID, you're starting to see that accelerate to where those two are just starting to come together. So that's one aspect that I've seen,
Mm-hmm.
is it sort of the resurgence of these companies that frankly start to look a lot alike, just coming in from two different angles. You got the safety security side, you've got the compliance and workflow side sort of coming together. The second big one that I would say is our industry as a whole, both all of a sudden is in the health business. So
Yeah.
we've always been in the safety business. So you can argue that that was part of health, but it was mainly around protection of keeping bad people out, to where now it's about health and wellness and helping people not get sick. And that is an area that before we battled always convenience and security. And
Mm-hmm.
then I always say that I got T-boned by health now. And that's been a big pivot, that where before, I'll give you a good example if you don't mind. On access control, it was about seamless and frictionless. And you saw it on the visitor management side too, the workflow seamlessly when people come into your lobby, let's say.
Right.
Then all of a sudden, now you have to balance this like third part, which is the health end of it. So it's security, convenience, and health. It's finding that nice balance between all of those to be able to deliver whatever's the best system for the use case that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you say access control was something where visitor management was an add-on, where I think a lot of visitor management providers think that access control is the add-on. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting perspective from either side. So given what you know, what do you really see the return to work or the reentry phase looking like in the recovery phase of business continuity plans?
Yeah, my belief is currently it's going to get very awkward, and that's okay. So what I think's happening is you've had an industry both that has historically been slow to adopt technology. And I think you've had a customer base that has treated this type of stuff like in the basement. It's been a utility, kind of like out of the way. And unless there's something bad that happened, but otherwise just don't touch it and leave it alone because it's
Mm-hmm.
about safety. Products on the access control side were, they were built to last for 30 years. You put them in, you leave them, and then they're done. On the visitor management side, again, it was security by, facilities management by, again, not typically a very progressive bunch when it came to decision making. All of a sudden now, because of the business continuity side need that you have, there's a rush right now of adoption of stuff. So whether it's
Yes.
fever cameras, it's visitor, like what system to go to, and then you're finding out that my systems that I might have been purchased, 10, 15, 20 years ago that had a life expectancy of 30, all of a sudden can't support the use cases that I need. So I have to make some quick buying decisions. So then some people being opportunistic too, you've got a rush of people into the space that maybe don't need to be. And then you
Mm-hmm.
have a rush of new people and new technology. So this is like where disruption happens, innovation happens. So I don't want to paint a picture that's all bad, but my belief is that it's just going to get a little weird at first because there's this great desire to get back to work. Like a good
Mm-hmm.
example is the introduction of the fever guns that some people are putting in their lobbies. I'm not convinced that that's going to be something that people are going to love to do long term. I think it fits a need, but if have you done it yet, you come to realize, especially at work, people are habitual, and there's a norm that they had, and now all of a sudden that has been turned upside down, and it's going to get just weird at first. Now, so then after it gets weird, I think it's somewhere levels back down, and there's a new watermark absolutely that's going to be created. And then I think we start to see best practices and normalcy come into place, and then it just becomes this idea that when you walk into a lobby, maybe some of the cameras they have do the fever side versus putting something up to your head, like that to me is normal-ish.
Mm-hmm.
It's still a little weird, but it's going to be, I think, a practice that people get used to over some time. And then the visitor management side, for instance, I just think that idea of having that personal touch when somebody walks through, if you think about it, like at least some of the offices that I've started to go into, there's like plexiglass now in front of people. So
Yeah.
like as human beings, we like that personal touch. So it's sort of like, how do you deliver that still without, putting somebody at risk? So there's just a weird period that's going to happen here. But then I think it gets a bit more normal.
Okay, so that it's not all bad. And I
No.
love that you brought up this human side to things, in saying that we need that personal touch, but we're also creatures of habit, like you said. So
Yeah.
do you have any advice for those out there who are kind of having a hard time and struggling during COVID-19? And that can be either, from the, end user experience or even for executives running these companies. Do you have some suggestions?
Yeah, my biggest suggestion would be is I think this is a good opportunity for a lot of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and conversation. And I think it's okay, especially if you're typically running a business. There's sort of like a hero syndrome in a lot of cases that a lot of us have, where we have to be in charge,
Mm.
and especially when there's a bunch of unrest and just awkwardness, that I think it's okay to have conversations with people and let people know exactly what's going on, because I think there's a lot of people out there that want to help. So I think communication, really digging into some of these details that before you've been able to more or less be like, that's Tom handles that or Sally
Mm-hmm.
handles that. Like, just let them go do that. That I think there's an engagement that needs to happen, and it be done in a manner of like everybody's on the same footing here of sort of trying to figure out what to do, so it's okay. I don't think we need to sort of rush to a lot of decisions. I think there's an opportunity to communicate and collaborate in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. I think that's actually one of the things I think is going to come out of this more than anything else is going to be, we're going to see this ecosystem get created that were historically before these sort of siloed solutions. Now there's this opportunity. I'm seeing a lot of partnership amongst people
Mm-hmm.
to help bring the best solution. So I think that that's okay. And my suggestion would be is just communicate more and have, I think, being more open and honest about what's going on. You'll have,
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll be received very well. And because a lot of people have the same feelings of what's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. You know, just starting those conversations, getting them going, communication, collaboration, which I think is a little bit, or no, not a little bit, but a big part of what you are doing right now in the industry, getting these conversations going. And I really appreciate that. And I really hope to, yeah, collaborate further with you going forward. And thank you so much for spending
I
a little
appreciate
bit of time with us, and we will talk again soon.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. I really
Thanks,
appreciate the
Lee.
opportunity.
All
Thank you.
right, great.